Alright guys, Billy, we're back with more Horizon. We are continuing on. Just gonna do some random side content. It's what is it, like 12:30? Yeah. Not much I need to do tonight. Still waiting on my laptop to arrive. So whatever, we're just gonna play some Horizon. Listen to the podcast.
At Final Five.
Alright, I don't even know what I'm doing now. Should I do this?
But those are the consequences of just waffling
We
all
have an
over the
actual
place.
quest,
And so
right?
that's definitely going to, obviously is going to play a part in all of our
we'll
ratings
do
on
this,
Kevin
yes.
because, people that, are tens, they can consider all of these options. They can consider possibilities of somebody turning on them and not being overly confident about that. So, I think even though, there are many times people have been so mad at Josh about the game. I don't know how many times my mom texts me just like, Josh is getting on my nerves. But the fact that he's like, in the end, I can like, especially going back and then listen to Taryn talk about Josh's game, it's just a refresher of just like, okay, I think I could totally be okay with a Josh win at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially as I started doing the notes for Kevin's game recap, which they couldn't have just like confirmed for me that Kevin was gone, because let me tell you, there's so much more that Kevin has done in comparison to the other three. It is not even remotely close. Kevin is involved in nearly every movement of the game. It's ridiculous, and he's played a phenomenal game to get here. But the thing is that competitions matter a lot. If you can't win competitions, or your allies can't win competition, like your number one ally can't win a competition for you, you have to run perfect. You have to be the perfect 10, or you will lose. Being a 9, being a 9.9 is not good enough. You need to be able to win when it matters. And Kevin, unfortunately, has not been able to pull through, even being able to practice this HOH competition. He was horrible in it. He couldn't land one of those balls into the right place if it could save his life. So, at the end of the day, that's just how it goes. Josh made way more mistakes, played a much less active and powerful game overall. But those mistakes are able to be covered up by the fact that he's able to win. That's it. He's winning, and that's all that matters. Like, you need to be able to win. If you can't win, then you need to be perfect, and Kevin was not perfect. And at the end of the day, that's just how it goes.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting when... Up we go!
So to kill them without blowing up their sacks, right?
Josh is confronted about not throwing the comp, and Kevin's like, yeah, I should not have trusted you. You played me on... You lied, and he's like, well, can't someone change their mind? It's like, well, yeah, but also, like, you said you were going to do something, then didn't, so you did kind of play him. Like, it just...
Why is it being shit?
Yes, but the outcome is the same. It's exactly right what Kevin says. It's like, yeah, but it still means that you didn't throw the comp and you would promise that you would, so... Like, we're missing something here. I think Josh knew he was playing it. He was just trying to ease but it's like, way out of that conversation. It's like, okay... But that's like not a good argument. Right? Just be like, yeah, but I changed my mind. What's the problem? You should do that. Speaking on that comp, do you think that it costs...
I'm thinking what we'll do actually after this fight. I think because like there's some things that we can't tag because like we don't know the location and certain things. I think we're just gonna do some question marks. And that's kind of what I started out doing until I realized, oh yeah, I can upgrade my shit. Yeah, I think I kind of want to like.
I don't know.
Get all
I would
the question
assume that
marks.
he would have thought that, but I don't.
So we'll do that in a second.
Remember if they've done this, because I feel like the first time I remember seeing this competition was Celebrity that just happened.
I'm just gonna do the orb, not the precise thing. That'd be a 14.
We saw that, and I feel like I was like, have I seen this before? I don't remember if we've seen this before. But I mean, obviously in my mind, knew that it was going to be a question comp because I had just seen it in Celebrity. But he must have watched Celebrity, so yeah. It's not. I'm forgetting that this isn't Survivor. It's not like they filmed this forever ago. So he must have known. He must have known.
Yeah, because that was awful.
Yeah.
But
It'd be good to loot all the dead machines here. More from the parts I'm looking for.
Why is this being really shit?
yeah.
It's again, you need to be able to win. I did ask the audience. Who do you think was evicted this week? That's sort of the big question of the night. Who was evicted at the Final Four? 85% of the audience thinks Kevin was evicted. 13% thinks Helena, and 1% of you out there are living in the clouds and think it was Betty.
I definitely think it was Kevin, unfortunately. I hope it's not, because I really want him to make it to the end, but, you know, I think it's probably him.
Yeah, I was thinking it could be in the air.
Oh fuck.
I was thinking, okay, if Kevin has at least like, I know we saw Arissa pop up, but if he had maybe 10 more minutes to kind of talk to Josh, maybe he could have changed his mind in some way, or Josh would have reconsidered something. Especially because he was saying, oh, Helena has never been nominated. But the fact that we saw it on the episode, I think that probably would have been like 95% if people had voted at the episode tonight.
I did also.
This should be enough.
Ask the audience, who should Josh and Betty separately, who should they be evicting here at the Final Four? And the audience said for both of them. For Josh, 70% said Kevin's the right call. For Betty, 80% said Kevin's the right call. Now, I do think it's a little bit different for Josh. I think that Josh has some reason to believe that like Helena might have a better chance at beating him in the final 3 HOH, and therefore maybe, you know, maybe keep Kevin instead, who's worse at competitions. If Josh's true goal, as he states to Betty, is to get to the final 2 with Betty, then
Okay.
maybe Helena Helena's the better shot there. For Betty, I feel like Helena is her best chance to win the game right now, but that could be wrong also.
Oh shit.
At the end of the day, I think that you probably just take out Kevin. I just feel like you just take out Kevin. You know he's the one that's the most likely to be able to win in the end, although they don't entirely think that. But you know that he's the one that's been pulling the strings the whole time. You just sometimes you gotta just follow your heart in that sense.
All right. Not that this matters, but
Especially with the fact that,
okay.
Helena, she can win comps, right? So she might be a threat to win the final 3 HOH. However, she's going to be totally shaken up by the fact that, her brother in crime is being evicted.
I mean, she's got like a fucking week.
That might throw her off her game enough that it's like, it's not even going to have to be a concern for Betty and Josh. But it's just like, if Kevin gets anywhere close, if I were Betty, the fact that Josh crossed me once, she even still did not really know that he would save her with this final POV. So if Kevin is still in that house, there's no way I'm going to final 3 with Kevin and Josh and think that, Kevin's not going to pull out all the stops to have Josh bring him to final 2.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting that, like, would Helena really be harder to beat in the final 3 HOH? Like, if we really break it down, right? Part 1 of the final 3 HOH, probably going to Josh, right? Probably going to Josh. It's probably some sort of skill-oriented thing that Josh would probably win. Part 2, is probably some sort of elaborate puzzle-esque quiz thing that they normally do. Betty has shown to not be great at those over the last 2 of them that have happened. Now, Kevin is also not great at them, but Kevin has been able to beat Betty at both. Helena has also beat Betty at both. So I kind of feel like odds are both Kevin or Helena would probably beat Betty at part 2, which means it's gonna come down to the quiz at the end anyway, and Kevin actually has performed a little bit better than Helena at the straight-up quizzes, so, I still think that Josh is like a heavy favorite. To win, regardless, but, at the very least, I don't think there's a clear differentiator between Kevin and Helena in the final 3 HOH. If anything, I feel like Kevin might have a slight chance, a slightly better chance at beating Josh. But those are just my thoughts. So I also asked, if given the choice, who does the audience think Josh will take to the final 2? Do they believe that he will take Betty? The audience does believe it. The audience thinks that 83% of the audience says Josh will take Betty.
Oh shit.
To the final 2. 11% say maybe he takes Helena. Maybe that number would be a little higher after this episode, talking about being in the end with Helena. I don't think that he meant it as, like, I'm definitely taking Helena, though. I think he mostly meant it in the sense of, like, in the event that Helena wins the final 3 HOH and I end up sitting next to her somehow, then I would want this argument against her.
Yeah, I think he would take Betty. I think especially after their reconciliation, I think he really regretted putting her on the block, and I do think that he thinks of her as a friend in real life, and I think that he wouldn't want, if he had the opportunity to cut her, I don't think he would do that. I think he would take her along, especially because I don't think he thinks that going against her is like a way for him to lose. Like I think he still thinks that he wins against Betty. So I don't really see any reason from his perspective to not take Betty with him to the final two. So I could absolutely see him taking Betty.
Yeah, there was a great shot in the episode where Kevin said to Josh, obviously you don't want to be sitting in the end with Betty, she beats everyone, and Josh is sipping, and he, as soon as Kevin says that, he like looks to the side like, I don't know about that, like he believes he can beat Betty, and so I think he's gonna take Betty.
Yeah, I think even Betty even believes he beats Betty. So I think that it's a win-win situation. You don't have to betray her again, and you can win the game.
I also asked the audience. If given the choice, who would Betty take to the final two? Will she really take Josh, or will she take Helena, who she has said outright she thinks Helena is an easy win in the end? She has mentioned to the cameras by herself before she made up with Josh that she planned on cutting Josh and taking Helena. But ever since she did make up with Josh, she has not said any of that. But she does still say that Helena's an easy win. 72% of the audience still does think, in fact, Betty will take Josh, and I do tend to agree. 25% of the audience, though, thinks could be Helena. And in both instances, nobody thinks that anybody's taking Kevin to the final two. 4% and 2% respectively.
That's so sad.
I made this a big point on Betty's game recap that I think that this is basically her final opportunity to really be business B instead of, Betty that's being led by her heart. And it's to win that final 3 HOH, cut Josh, take Helena, the easy win, and probably win. Now the problem is that Kevin could be in the jury house, like really campaigning for Helena, and that could be bad. And maybe the right call is to take Josh. Maybe she doesn't need to not lead by her heart. Maybe leading by her heart is what's going to give her the win, after all, by taking Josh. And then people are so bitter at Josh that they end up voting for Betty to win. It's a little hard to see, but it's not impossible, because basically, and we'll talk about jury votes, but we'll wait until we talk about jury votes, because that's going to be a whole thing. I also asked the audience, who do you want to be evicted this week? And some very interesting responses. It's almost dead even across all three. 36% say Betty, 32% say Helena, 30% say Kevin. So people all over the place. There's an even split here.
And that was who they wanted to be evicted?
Who do you want to be evicted? Yeah.
Yeah, it is a tough spot, because, like, for me, for Josh and Betty, like, I would want Kevin to go out, but then as a viewer, it's like, I would want to see Kevin go as far as he can, whether that's final 3, final 2, because of the game he's played, because of what we've been able to see all of these weeks. But then it's just like, if you have the chance right there in front of you, and I think if you have the chance in front of you, you can't not take it. And I think being able to see Josh and Betty realize what Kevin has done, I think that's something we're missing on a lot of masterful players we've seen in the past, is people not catching on to what they're doing while they're in the house. You have all these, oh my gosh, this happened once they're in the jury, but rarely does it. Yeah. We got to see that again. So you rarely see people happening in the house where they can actually do something about it. So that's kind of where I'm like teeter-tottering, and I don't know what I want personally.
Well, I asked the audience, who do you want to win Big Brother Canada 10? 51% want Kevin to win. Second place, 28% want
This is business B.
Betty
Let's get it.
to win. 12% want Josh to win. Only 7% want Helena to win. I think Kevin kind of eats up probably most of that equity there. But that's who they want to win. But who will win Big Brother Canada 10? 82% of the audience thinks that Josh is the Big Brother Canada 10 winner. 12% say Betty, 2% Helena, 1% Kevin.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I guess we probably will talk about it, but was that the decision, the final five, who to vote to evict, was that the decision that did lose Kevin the game? Because if we're in a situation where JC Lynn is here, okay, yeah, she may have not teamed up with Betty hardcore, but Betty had already had the realization about Kevin and Helena, so maybe there was a potential there. But, you know, it could have been a situation where JC Lynn won the POV and the HOH, and Kevin would be right in the situation again.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jace wins that HOH, considering how terribly both Helena and Kevin did in it. I think she wins that HOH. Does she also win the veto? We haven't seen it, you know, so we don't know what it is. We know that Helena was, I think, roughly like 8 to 10 minutes off of Josh's time, and then Kevin was another like 10 minutes below Helena, and Betty was way out of it. So decent chance she would have been able to win the veto, but maybe Helena wins it. Either way, though, I did talk to her in the exit interview, and she said she had planned on cutting Betty at 4 and bringing Kevin to the final 2. Which is a lot better than the odds that Josh would have done that, right? Now, because of course there's a chance that Betty gets in there with Jace and says, no, Kevin's the mastermind, you can't listen to him. And Jace comes to her senses and decides to do something else. But, you know, again, the odds are much higher that they're able to skate through there. So, you know, who knows? I definitely think that this was, you know, a game-losing mistake for Kevin to keep Josh around and to lose Josh and to waffle back and forth. Because again, I think he could have kept Josh, but he couldn't. He could not spend all of that time wavering. That was just a huge mistake.
Yeah, or even indicating that he wasn't. Like, I feel like it was even just the indication that he might not keep Josh. Like, is huge. I mean, that would absolutely, if I'm Josh, would be like, oh, okay, clearly Kevin is not with me. There's something going on here. And then the second Betty explains, like, yes, Kevin's the mastermind or whatever, there's a lot going on, I'd be like, yeah, of course there is. But if, on the other hand, Kevin the whole time was like, no, we're keeping you, and maybe privately was thinking,
that was
like,
actually
I don't know about this, I don't know what to do. Then maybe Josh would be like, no, Kevin's loyal to me, he's obviously going to keep me, and then Kevin ends up keeping him, and it's like, okay, we're still good. Yeah, I just feel like it was the going back and forth. It was telling other people that you're considering affecting people. I mean, by the end of it, both people were upset, like being like, okay, so you said you were going to keep me, and then you weren't going to keep me, and then you weren't going to keep me again. Now I'm very confused. You're kind of just like stringing me around, and that was just not a good move at all. You need to make your decision and stick with it. And then, like, work that person that you're keeping the rest of the weeks that they're on your side. Like, it's that simple. And instead, you know, they just went back and forth while letting everybody else be completely aware of the fact that they were going back and forth. So it was just such a bad week played all around, for sure.
Yeah, and even in this episode, Kevin's like, he must have realized that we were going to cut him. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
were you there last week? Not only did you act like you were going to cut him, but you straight up told Betty, like,
and then asked Josh to throw the HOH if they keep him.
Yeah.
Right. Like, none of that this should not be the way it played out at all. Like, that,
no, you can't.
It was just a bad week all around. And I don't think, like you said, Taryn, I don't think it's, the fact that he cut JC Lynn and kept Josh is the mistake. I feel like the whole week was a mistake. There were so many ways it could have been, you know, still okay, even if he kept Josh. And yet, it just was, the whole week was just played wrong. And it just, it's bad for them, for sure.
Yeah. I also asked the audience, how would you rank each player as a winner of Big Brother Canada if they were to win the game? the tiers, of course, the bottom tier, low tier, middle tier, great tier, top tier, and then in the Big Brother Pantheon. And so we have the potential rankings for each potential winner. Both Josh and Betty in the middle tier for the audience. Helena just shy of great tier, just at the very top of middle tier. And Kevin just shy of the Pantheon in the top tier, if he were to go on to win. I think maybe without that mistake he would have been in the Pantheon, but now it's maybe called into question, even if he does pull it out. We will see. But that's sort of the feeling of the audience as of right now. I think that's pretty fair overall. I think maybe Helena deserves a little bit. I think she needs to get that bump into the great tier, but
I don't agree.
Yeah, it's so hard to say though. I don't know. It's so hard. I'll wait until you review their games, but it's so hard to say, who was playing what role in the Ghosts. Is it a situation where you put Helena in a different season without Kevin, that she's able to play the game that she did play? And I know because she was moving so silently, Kevin is probably, and he was the one in the forefront, he's getting more credit
That's right.
for the moves that were made. But
Shut her balls.
I don't know. It's hard for me to see her doing much better in a different season not without him, but without what he provided in that partnership.
yeah, I think the key thing for me when I went through Helena's game was the sort of through line for me was she talked to Kevin at one point in the game about how she doesn't have a lot of self-confidence. It's kind of a thing with her. And I feel like that permeates throughout her game. I feel like her game lacks confidence. And it shouldn't, because she's an excellent player. But because she lacks confidence, she sometimes is unable to make the moves she needs to make without the encouragement of Kevin. And at the end of the day, always refers to Kevin in terms of the decision they're going to make. Even when he's sometimes wrong, she goes with what Kevin wants. And if she had more confidence in herself and her ability in the game, I think she'd be able to perform well. But without Kevin there to push her, I don't know if she ever breaches that barrier. So it's interesting, but you can hear more of my thoughts on Helena tomorrow morning. Okay, we have. Let's go through. Let's talk about the week of the show. How do we rate the episodes this week? The audience says a 7.4. Pretty good. I mean, very good for normal standards. Pretty good for this season standards. The feeds this week is 6.4, which, again, pretty good for the Final Four, but, they've been down for a few days, so. And then the season as a whole so far, an 8.6. Down from the 8.8 last week.
Though, still.
But still very good, very high for sure. Competitions get a 6.7. I feel like competitions have kind of degraded to at least around average. Best,
well, I feel like today's competition was just like I did not care. So
I feel like they seem to like it feels like they're like, well, endgame competitions, they've always got to be at least pretty similar. It's like, why?
Yeah, they've always got to be really boring. Like that's just very dumb.
Yeah, I was surprised they were still in that room. Like, usually, like in Big Brother US, the practice, what they're given, is not what they're actually doing the competition.
Right, like it's just like a dinky version of it, and then they go out and do like the big grand, like, yeah, that's what I was expecting, and then it's like, oh, it's exactly the same. Okay, cool, we just literally spent all this time looking at stupid bacon on a thing surrounded by numbers. It was just very bizarre. Not for me. Apparently, I'm not a Wendy's breakfast person, so.
I guess not. I would have you guess the player favorite ranking for the Final Four, but it's the exact same as the Who Do I Want to Win ranking, so.
Yeah.
It's Kevin, Betty, Josh, Helena, and that's what's going on there. But we can make some guesses at who are you voting for Canada's favorite player? Who are you voting for Canada's favorite player? Who do we think are the top 3 vote getters for Big Brother Canada's favorite player?
Oh, man.
I feel like the voting has been all over the place, and I've been very surprised by people's, who they're campaigning for. I would say for sure Kevin should win. and I think he should be number one. But I've seen a lot of people campaigning for other people, and I'm very surprised.
Yeah, I literally have seen so many different names. I have no idea where it could go because I'm like, okay, was Herman evicted too long ago that people aren't as entertained anymore because we're not seeing him every week? So it's just like, if I had to guess, because okay, maybe Gino. I don't even know. Is it
Gino's
Marty?
a nice guy, but
Gino's
Gino's a nice
fucking
guy, but he should
boring
not
as
be
shit.
winning this favorite player thing. He brought nothing.
Okay.
All right, who's the top three?
I'm gonna say Kevin, Summer, and Herman.
I'd say Kevin and Herman, because those are who I would vote for. No one.
Nobody's in third place. Okay.
I would vote for Kevin and Herman if I had the ability to vote, which I guess I could do. But
Kevin is the top pick with 47%
then
of
where's
the
the
vote.
campaign, people? I'm
Well,
not
this is-
seeing it anywhere.
Melissa, this is this audience.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying I'm not seeing anybody talk about it on Twitter. His name's not being brought up one time when people are talking about
Twitter.
Canada's favorite
Where's
players.
your campaign?
I don't do the I journalistic integrity. Just kidding.
You
We
sound-
always argue that we're not journalists. Like whenever anyone's like, "You guys need to be unbiased," and we're like, "We're not journalists." So that was a joke. For all you who are gonna come at me and be like, "Oh, really? Journalistic integrity?" and you're saying you like Kevin the most? Like, yeah, no. So yes, I'm not gonna campaign, but
But somebody should.
But somebody should. That's the thing. Like, I
Should I
don't
try
want to
to
do
Not
the
you.
work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the work. I'm just going to tell someone else to do the work.
Not only tell somebody else, but tell them that it's ridiculous that they're not doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Yes, that's exactly what's going on. You guys are not campaigning enough. I need people to campaign more. Thank you. It all comes to a head with the Squid Game music.
It does. All right. Well, Kevin, number one. Asia is correct. Summer is in second place with 20% of the vote. And then Herman was in fourth place with 5% of the vote. In
Gino.
third place
This is business B. Let's get it.
Betty.
Let's get it.
with 12% of the vote.
Okay.
Proud of her.
That's funny.
I very much doubt this is indicative of the actual
we never
results
said it.
of Canada's favorite, but I think there's a decent chance that, obviously, if we're gonna actually try to predict who wins, I think you have to look very closely at Marty and Summer. Why? Because they've both already won a vote of exactly what this is.
Right.
And perhaps the only reason Marty didn't win it a second time is because he was ineligible. But Summer won it most recently. So I think it has to be between the two of them. I think it seems ridiculous to think otherwise in my eyes. Maybe
I think
there's a
Kevin
push for
win.
Kevin. But if Kevin didn't get the safety, then I don't
Right.
think he's going to get the Canada's favorite.
But I also think, okay, so I will say that, like, I
Well, I
do
feel
think
like
with the
that's
safety
normal
thing, people
compliment.
were saying Kevin's already safe, and it might give away his game if we, like, vote
The
for
casual
him.
audience is not thinking.
The casual
strategically
audience
in that
is saying
sense.
that, but I'm just saying, like, that is an argument that I saw being made, so that's why people weren't voting for him for that. Like, they didn't want to reveal that, like, he was doing anything behind the scenes because they wanted people to think he was just, like, a non-entity in the game. And then maybe a situation as, like, maybe now people might be
Oof,
wanting
that was
to
close.
campaign
Almost
or vote
fucked
for Kevin now that they're under the assumption that he's getting kicked out right now. That maybe people are like, oh, okay, wait, I thought he was going to win the game, so I wasn't going to vote for him for the favorite player. Now that he's not, like, I need to get on this. I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking.
All right. Well, finally, I had the audience try to predict the jury votes. Individual jury votes as well. We've got a lot of different final two scenarios. So let's run it through. I'll read you out the jury votes that the audience thinks are going to be there, and then we can agree or disagree. In the event that Josh is sitting in the final two with Betty, which I feel like is probably the most likely result at this point, the audience thinks that, and by the way, I included a theoretical audience vote I don't know if there will be one, if there will be 8 votes, 9 votes, whatever, but I included it as a predictor tool just in case there was one. So the audience thinks that if it's Josh versus Betty in the final 2, that Josh will win 7-1 against Betty, with Summer being the only vote for Betty. And they think that if the audience votes, that the audience would vote for Betty, and it would be 7-2. But if the audience does not vote, it would be 7-1 with Summer as the sole vote for Betty. They think that Moose and Herman are the 2 people who are closest to voting for Betty in that spot, but that ultimately they will vote for Josh. I don't think this is impossible. I think that this is, especially with, the consideration that Moose and Herman, I think, would be the 2 next people to vote for Betty. And then I do think the audience would probably vote for Betty. So I think that this is not the worst read here.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do think it would be a closer vote, but I actually see the ultimate outcome being Josh winning it.
I also could see a couple of votes swinging Betty's way, but I also could see a possibility of Summer being in the jury house long enough to see, to like the pain she experienced with being blinded by Josh may not be as fresh when she's voting. So you may be able to look at it like, wow, Josh, and came through at the end, so I have no choice. I have to give him props for that, but who knows? And
I think that's the thing, right? Like, you've got Marty, Jace, and Gino all saying very positive things about Josh. They're not bitter at Josh. They never felt super betrayed by Josh. They felt like Josh was impressive, and Jace in particular was kind of singing Josh's praises, and was pretty low on Betty. I think all 3 of them probably feel pretty high on Josh. The fact that Summer and Moose and Herman might be upset with Josh is that they are all saying we need to vote not emotionally. We're voting on game. So I don't think that theoretically we wouldn't see that they're going to be impacted by that bitterness. If anything, I think the opposite might be true. We saw Summer in her interview with me already saying, maybe I could get over it and vote for Josh. And the fact that Josh probably wins the last 3 competitions in a row. I mean, think about what has happened here. Josh won the triple eviction, didn't compete in the triple eviction veto or the final 5 HOH. He lost the final 5 veto, but then won the final 4 HOH, final 4 veto, and if they win the final 3 HOH, then he's won 4 out of the last 5 competitions he competed in. That's ridiculous, and a lot of them talked about respecting comp wins. So, it seems like it's a tough road for Betty.
Yeah, it does, and I don't know if Betty's going to. We're not going to see the fire we saw in season 6, right? Where she's just pulling out all the stops, she's yelling at the jury, explaining why she deserves to win, because I think she respects Josh's game, and she has this view of his game right now that he deserves to win, and I think she's content with that. And so if you have a person who's content with that the other person should win and could win and would win, then they're not going to do anything to try to see maybe I do have a chance. So if she's not going to try to find any points, then you probably wouldn't see her win.
And I apologize again if the StreamYard is perhaps acting up again. But what is StreamYard has got to fix their problem.
Yeah.
We experience no issues in the call.
Yeah, fine.
So what are we gonna do? I do now. Like I said, I do see a path for Betty to win if she goes to the end with Josh. I think that it would include Summer, Moose, and Herman all being anti-Josh, perhaps pro-Betty, and then maybe she can get Kevin and Helena. And if she gets Kevin and Helena, then that's 5 votes. That's what they need. That's what she needs. Will Kevin and Helena vote for Betty over Josh?
Oh.
I mean, I think they both know that Josh was a very good player. I think the fact that Josh tricked them, yes, they're like kind of annoyed about it, but I think they respect it. And so I'm not sure that that's going to be the path. The only other path is that somehow they've been able to, Moose, Herman, and Summer have been able to kind of pull Marty and Gino and Jace.
So I'm assuming you have to scan it to
Maybe
activate it.
They
Is what
just
it
have,
seems like.
Yeah. Enough of like.
I think that's what.
Yes, you can talk about how you want to.
It seems like they're not like active
but the
in
fact
the
of the matter
world
is, we feel like Josh managed
properly
us very
until you
poorly in
scan
terms
it.
of his jury, management.
So
And maybe that's
that should
enough.
be enough.
Maybe there's
So
enough
that's everything
like,
here,
hey, Betty
right?
really stepped it up here. She flipped Josh back over, got Josh to take her to the end, whatever it is. I think it's possible, but it does seem like it's a tough road. So, all right. Then we have Betty versus Helena. Betty versus Helena. Instead of going up against Josh, Betty goes up against Helena. This is perhaps where, like, say, Betty wins the final 3 HOH, takes Helena, or maybe Helena wins the final 3 HOH, takes Betty. The audience thinks that in a Betty versus Helena final 2, Betty wins 6-2. Pretty lopsided. The two being Marty and Kevin for Helena.
I can totally see that.
It's definitely possible there. I would say, again, you probably have Herman, Moose, and Summer all in Betty's camp. I think Josh is a Betty vote there as well. That's 4 votes for Betty right away. Then is Kevin able to sway Jace and Gino over to Helena's side? That's kind of the question. He's not going to have a lot of time. The 4th place juror does tend to go to the jury house here in Big Brother Canada, but it's not like they have a ton of time to like win people over or convince people, right? And now that they know that Kevin is like snaky, like maybe he doesn't have as much influence over them, they're like, look, we're gonna vote how we want to vote. Who knows? I think they both have a shot here realistically, but I would lean Betty. As of right now, barring what influence Kevin may have, because we never really know what kind of influence that would have. I do feel like I feel like Betty has the leg up here over Helena, which is part of why I feel like the move is probably to cut Josh and take Helena.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think if anyone is capable of having any influence in a quick amount of time, it would be Kevin. And I think he would realize a way, like, okay, I need to prepare a speech for them, for Helena to figure. And I think he could probably pull maybe two or three votes, maybe, if whatever he's able to come up with. But it really just depends on how people are viewing Betty's game while they're in the jury.
Yeah. So Josh versus Helena. Let's say for some reason, Josh did say in his diary rooms in this episode that he was thinking about what he would say versus Helena in the final 2. Maybe for some reason he does decide to cut Betty and take Helena, or maybe Helena decides that for some reason it's easier to beat Josh than Betty, and they somehow end up in the final 2 together. The audience thinks that Josh beats Helena. 6-2. Just the same. It's all the same votes. Marty and Kevin
I don't
vote
think Marty
for
votes for
Helena.
Helena over
Everybody
Josh.
else votes for Josh. The audience, by the way, in Betty versus Helena, they think the audience would vote for Betty over Helena, and the audience also thinks that our audience thinks that the Canadian audience would vote for Josh over Helena as well. So now there are some closer votes. For instance, the audience thinks that Summer is maybe could vote for Summer, or sorry, so the audience thinks that Summer could vote for Helena over Josh. They think that Summer's the closest person to flipping a vote there, but that a lot of those other votes are more likely to be for Josh. I think, again, this is probably the case. In some ways, I think that the audience is right. I think that Helena might actually have weirdly a better chance against Josh than she does against Betty. But either way, I do think that it's a tough road.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's and that's what makes me think about Helena and Kevin's game is that if Kevin is there, we're not seeing this like, oh well, no matter what he loses. But with Helena we're seeing that just because of how she, like, not strategy aside, how she's handled the social relationships in the game, especially when people are leaving and just like I don't care.
Yeah. Well, I did go over what would happen if Kevin does make it there. Kevin versus Betty. The audience thinks that Kevin wins 6-2, with Summer and Josh both being Betty votes, everybody else being Kevin votes, including if the audience votes, they think the audience would vote for Kevin. I don't think we need to go too in detail about Kevin in the final two, because based on what we've seen and heard from the jury, I think that Kevin beats anybody if he's sitting there. I think that is probably the case. So the audience also thinks that Kevin beats Josh 6-2, with Herman and Betty being votes for Josh, and everyone else being votes for Kevin, including the audience. And then Kevin versus Helena. The audience thinks that Kevin beats Helena unanimously, including the audience.
Yeah, because who's riding for Helena in the jury? Right. It would be Kevin. That's it.
Frosting, I can help here.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree. If Kevin makes it there, they think he wins. The question is, can he make it there? So that's the jury predictions. Are we ready to rate the players?
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's only 4 players to rate, but this is, of course, the part of the podcast where we rate each player from 1 to 10 based on how well we think they're doing this week. And at this point, it's our final ratings before the finale. So, short-term safety basically equals what are their chances to get to the final 2, and do we think they've already been evicted? Long-term prospects are they going to win the jury vote? And what did they do this week? Still a factor for me. So let's run through this final 4. We will start with Betty. Now Betty probably in the final 3. That's great. I feel like she probably has a 2 out of 3 chance of making it to the final 2, which is great. The problem is, can she win? We just kind of outlined that, like, she probably has some trouble beating Josh. She probably can beat Helena. But is she willing to take Helena? If Helena wins and John takes Betty, I feel like that gives Helena a little bit more of a case against Betty. It makes it a little less likely that she wins. I do feel like Betty cutting Josh for Helena could be a game-winning move, or Kevin could spin it as, look at how good Helena is. Either way, I feel like it's a tough road. I feel like Betty is definitely still in it with a shot. But I wish that I had heard from Betty that she was thinking a little more critically about who she wanted to sit in the final 2 with. Because right now I feel like she thinks that she definitely beats Helena and might lose against Josh, but willing to take Josh anyway. And I don't love that for Betty. I feel like this is not a great spot for Betty
isn't there a
to
workbench
be.
here?
That said, it's not like, I don't think she's drawing dead. I don't think that she's in a position where, she can't win the game, but I also don't like that she's, basically letting Josh make the decision. Because what if Josh does tell her, evict Helena?
Right.
And then she does. I believe that she will.
Yeah,
and if she evicts Helena, then she's sitting in the final 3 with Kevin and Josh? Can she beat either one of them? I don't know.
No.
Man. It's tough. I think that I have to give Betty, I think that I have to give Betty a 5. I feel like, just the willingness to take Josh to the end, the willingness to let Josh make the decision final 4, not winning either of the final 4 or final 4 HOH or final 4 veto competitions, the chance that she's going to win the final 3 HOH, I think, is not super high either. I'm very concerned for Betty here moving forward, and so I'm going to give her a 5. Melissa, what do you think?
I agree with what you said. I think that she has a decent. I know we kind of just went through all the notes and everything, but I think there is an argument to be made if she makes it to the final 2 for her to win. So I don't think she's completely drawing dead or anything like that, but I do think the fact that she hasn't really been winning any of these recent competitions, I think that certainly is not great for her. I don't, like you said, love the idea that she's telling Josh, you make this decision for me, like she won this, or like she's won this opportunity. Josh won, she now has the opportunity to make the decision, and like she should use that to her advantage. She shouldn't just be giving it to Josh by any means. Like, I mean, yes, like Josh just recently, Josh is going to save her significantly, but like he just recently put her on the block. I feel like it's like she should be thinking for herself, and she shouldn't be relying on anybody else at this point. We're at the end, and so I really hope that she kind of just uses this to her advantage. I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, I'm just going to at this point. I think at this point I'm just going to stick with my 6.
Might as well go here.
You know what? I might go up more because she has a good chance to win. Like, I really
I
do
don't
think she
think
does.
she does.
I think she has a better chance to win than she did last week when we rated her. So I think
I
I'm
disagree
actually going
with
to
that
go with
also.
that because I do think there's a really good chance for her to win. So she's a 7 for me.
All right, Asia.
7.
All right, yeah, I have to think about the fact that, she, like Melissa said, she does have a chance to win.
I don't think she
However,
does.
she is putting herself in a position if she
Yeah, unless
had
she gets the
choice,
Helena.
she would get 2nd place because she goes straight to the final 2. But she is here. If you had told me that Betty would be final 4 at the beginning of the game with just like how she's not afraid to confront people about stuff. I mean, we even saw it on the episode, the Moose, like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Kevin, I do hate you. Like all these different
Scorcher
moments.
too.
It's like, there's going to be a point where they're like, okay, we got to get rid of Betty. Just make it happen. But she's still here, and she won an HOH, and she's figured out Kevin and Helena, or Kevin specifically. So I got to give her props to that. So I'm going to go right in the middle and give her a 6.
All right. Well, the audience, little bit lower than you guys on Betty. The audience gave Betty a 5 this week. Not super confident about Betty's win chances.
Interesting that the whole chat was like, Taryn, a 5? You're insane. And now, like, oh, wait, actually, we did the same.
That's typically how it goes. That's pretty typical from the chat. So let's move on to Helena.
You can't do either?
Melissa, what do you think about Helena?
Oh, shit. Okay. I thought I had it.
I feel like... I think I'm also, like, thinking based on the idea that Kevin is gone. And I don't know if I should be doing that because I really don't know if he is or not, but I guess, like, that seems most likely. I do think that I feel less confident about Helena's game than I did last time we rated them, because last time we rated them, I felt like her and Kevin, they were, like, in it to win it. They could take it to the end. Now I think if Kevin is gone, I'm not so sure about Helena's position. It ends up looking like Josh and Betty versus Helena. Now, it's possible that, Betty or Josh decide to, hey, I have a better chance against Helena or something. I'm going to take Helena instead. But I don't know if that seems likely. And the fact that people are saying that Helena doesn't, at least when we went through those jury votes, it doesn't seem likely that people are going to recognize Helena's game unless somehow Kevin can get into jury house and just like explain everything to them. But I feel like we always hope for that, and we don't really get that unless the person, unless they go into the jury house like a few weeks before and they have some time, rather than going into the jury house like right near the end and they only have like a couple hours. Like jury roundtables, they don't help. So I am a little concerned for Helena in terms of having somebody there to kind of, sing your praises. I feel like I think Betty has a better chance to win than
No
Helena.
flower.
So
Where's the
I
milk
am
flower?
feeling like I want to give Helena a lower score. I think I want to give Helena. I think I want to give Helena a 6.
Okay, Asia, what do you think?
Yeah, so
6 is way too high.
if we're thinking Kevin's gone, Helena has 0 chance to win. She's not winning, right? So then it's like, okay, then am I rating on how well of a game she has played, or if her winning potential is completely out of there, I'm not going to give her a 1. But I do have to think about, okay, leading up to this point, how could she have put herself in a better position? And, okay, take Kevin out of the picture. What does she have? She worked so well with Kevin, but she put her all into Kevin. It was like Kevin put his 70% into her, and 30% he spread out equally without everyone else and make sure he put in that time. Helena was 100% into Kevin. And now it's put her in a position where Kevin's gone. It's just like, well, where do I turn? What do I do? I can't rely on Josh. I can't rely on Betty. I haven't built those relationships. So because of that, I'm going to have to give her a 4.
4 from Asia. Well, the audience splitting the difference on this one. The audience also gave Helena a 5 this week. So there you go from the audience. Man, I think I have to go even harder on Helena here, and the reason is because, first of all, she could be evicted, for all we know, right?
Yeah, I feel like we're just saying, like,
she could not even be in the house right now. Second, even if she is in the house, I agree with Asia. I feel like it could be a tough call. It could be a tough path for her to potentially win this game. Not only do I think she needs to win that final 3 HOH, but even if she does, I think that probably Betty would be the person she takes, would still have a decent chance to beat her. So I love that. And on top of that, I have to factor in the fact that she evicted Jace after going back and forth, knowing that was not the right move. She decided to evict Jace anyway. And she left a goodbye message saying this.
Stacey Lynn, you're a strong, independent girl. There's no doubt about that. But you focus more on love than the game. My head was always in the game since the beginning. I know you don't respect my decisions, but you're outside of this house, and I'm in here.
That's in the grading period.
True.
She did that during the test.
You're right.
Like,
I forgot about that. That was so bad.
So
that was
bad.
beyond bad. Like, I tweeted it out at the time, but like,
Oh shit, I just
that was
realized.
the
Yeah, I wasn't even paying attention.
message.
Okay, we
that
gotta end.
alone makes me want to give her like a 2. Maybe I should change my score. We're still in the rating
too bad,
period.
yes.
We haven't finished this one. I can change my score.
it's so bad, and not only was it the goodbye message, but it's also that she said to Helena again, like, hey, look, whatever Kevin decides is what I'm gonna have to do.
Cool. One, two.
And it's just like,
Next up, we continue on.
I think
Don't know
that is the damning thing.
if
That is
that'll
the
be
thing where it's like Kevin can go to the jury house
tomorrow
all he
morning
wants
or what,
and
but
say,
no,
no,
unfortunately.
Helena was with me lockstep the whole